Right, so tonight we're catching up with developments north of our border with Dewa Mavhinga, who's a senior researcher with Human Rights Watch. Thank you for being with us. So let's start there. So Armed Forces Day tomorrow, Emerson Mnangagwa will be there. Would you like to see some condemnation of what we've seen recently?
Absolutely. It is important for caretaker President Mnangagwa to take responsibility and also to equally address the issues of the abuses by the military. When we talk of Armed Forces Day, it should be a time for citizens to be respectful of the armed forces. But what is happening now in Zimbabwe is that there is a lot of fear. People are scared of the armed forces because of the events of the last few days, including the shooting on the 1st of August.
What words should he say? I mean, we're acting, the world has moved on, but that was horrific.
Absolutely.
Armed forces opening fire, using live ammunition, people getting caught in the crossfire 2 days after a seemingly peaceful election.
Absolutely, and Mnangagwa needs to talk about justice, needs to draw a line in the sand and say, this is not business as usual. He cannot sweep things under the carpet. He needs to let Zimbabweans and the international community know that he is prepared to hold accountable those soldiers who crossed the line, who used excessive force, who used live ammunition on citizens. If he does not say that, then it means that there is no commitment or political will to address serious abuses by the security forces, which is basically what we have been experiencing over the last 38 years. Impunity, lack of accountability. So this is the time for Mnangagwa to step up to the plate.
Some sort of inquiry.
Absolutely, and also a promise and a commitment to bring those responsible to justice.
But doesn't he owe the armed forces for his job?
He does, but he has also said that over the last 9 months that this is a new dispensation, that this is an unfolding democracy. So we need not just his words, he must walk the talk. He must deliver in terms of actions. It's not enough to say he owes these armed forces when they go rogue, when they go on a rampage and commit all these abuses. He needs to show the world and Zimbabweans where he stands in terms of respect for the rule of law and for human rights.
So from what I've read, you know, former President Robert Mugabe made sure that the armed forces pay was efficient, that they received increases despite what was happening in the economy. Right now, Emerson Mnangagwa, how obliged will he feel and how scared will he feel of taking on the army after a soft coup?
Well, that's the challenge. He is in a predicament, but he needs to take a stand. It's about his legacy. He needs to take a stand now.
No matter the cost.
Absolutely, because there are actually questions about whether or not, as we speak, Mnangagwa is in control or in charge of the army. He has said he does not know who gave the orders on the 1st of August to deploy the soldiers to use live ammunition. But this is an opportunity for him to salvage what is left of his legacy and say clearly he stands for the rule of law, for human rights respect, and to deal with those elements in the military. Otherwise, he would have lost it.
All right, let's look at the MDC challenge now. So this creates a whole lot of uncertainty. I think the inauguration has been delayed because of it, but at least it seems like a peaceful challenge to the vote at the moment.
Yes, it does. And effectively, the inauguration has been cancelled because the Constitutional Court can make a decision or determination to say perhaps Mnangagwa is not the rightful president if it finds in that way, or that there was no candidate who got the sufficient number of votes in terms of the Constitution, which is 50% plus 1 vote, to be able to have a simple majority and avoid a runoff election, which should happen on the 8th of September. So the Constitutional Court has the final word on this matter, and we await the determination in the next 2 weeks. But the MDC Alliance and others who have done an analysis of these results, they have come up with quite incredible allegations in terms of how the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has failed to properly tally the results. And the question is whether this was just, incompetence and errors, or it was deliberate, fraudulent attempts to favor Mnangagwa.
Well, what do you think, I don't know if you've seen all the evidence, but as Human Rights Watch, of the MDC's claims?
Well, what we have seen, we wait for the court. We'll give the Constitutional Court space to make a determination. But what we have had, for example, there are polling stations nearby each other with identical results for 23 presidential candidates. And statistically, that is highly improbable, impossible even. And there are also cases of double counting of votes. And there is an argument that all these errors that have been picked up in terms of the counting of votes, they appear to be systematic in the sense that of the 23 presidential candidates, all these errors appear to be favoring just one candidate, Emerson Mnangagwa, and not all the other 22. So there are serious questions around that. But this is...
They've said gross mathematical and statistical errors. So yes, you're saying the evidence could back that up, actually.
Yes, but the challenge is that, well, we leave it to the Constitutional Court to make a determination on whether these gross errors were deliberate, were fraudulent, or they were just incompetence on the part of the Electoral Commission, in which case, perhaps the big question would be, are the numbers in those errors sufficient to overturn Mnangagwa's slight or narrow lead, which is 0.8%.
Well, let's get into that, because Nelson Chamisa got 44% of the vote, so it seems like a long way to move him up to 50. But if you take 50.8%, which is what Emerson Mnangagwa got, you just have to prove that the 0.8% is not valid, and then there has to be a rerun.
Absolutely.
So this is a small number here that they have to prove.
It's very close, yes, about 40,000 votes. So it's a very narrow margin that has to be proven. So it's about saying the cumulative numbers of those votes in error. If you can remove that slight lead of 0.8% from Mnangagwa, then it means a runoff becomes necessary, and by law, this will be on the 8th of September.
Do you have the faith in the Constitutional Court to make a fair and just judgment here?
We hope that in the spirit of the new dispensation that they will do that, and that perhaps the evidence will be so overwhelming that it will be unthinkable not to do that. But also we need to know that there is another framework of law that the Constitutional Court can use, which is to decide the matter on technicalities. So, for example, whether or not the MDC has complied with, the basics around the time that is required to file a petition, or the money that needs to be paid, or the saving of papers on individuals. All those things are technical aspects on which perhaps the matter might be decided and then dismissed on that basis.
All right, so today, Heroes Day in Zimbabwe, a celebration of liberation leaders in their country. Is it poignant in light of this constitutional battle now that's going on?
It is, and I think it's also for Zimbabweans a time to reflect on the legacy of Zimbabwe. If you look at the liberation struggle from which they derived the heroes, it was really about human rights respect, justice, and equality. But then questions are being asked now in light of the abuses by state security agents, whether or not the state is committed to these basic values. So it's a serious time of reflection, and we hope that the leadership that is there will rise to the occasion, step up to the plate, and show that there is some resonance and coherence in terms of the liberation struggle legacy.
All right, so reflection on the streets. Hopefully tomorrow we'll see what the president says on Armed Forces Day, and the court there has 14 days to rule on the MDC's application. We'll follow all the developments. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
That was Dewa Mavhinga, a senior researcher with Human Rights Watch.